A new Canadian Heritage Minute highlights the history of the Vancouver Island community of Paldie. It was established in Cowichan Valley area more than a century ago.
When I arrived in Canada, there were not many women who looked like me. Not everyone was welcoming. But my husband made a new life here in this distant country. And I thought, here I could belong.
Satwinder Kaur Bains helped create this story, and she served as history consultant on the Paldie Heritage Minister, also director of the South Asian Studies Institute at the University of Fraser Valley. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Hannah. Thanks for having me.
You know what? I asked the crew just before we went on air, it's like, how much have you guys learned from Heritage Minutes over the years? So this is a really big deal.
I agree with you. Yeah, it's the first South Asian Minute. It's the first one to be done in Punjabi as well as French and English together. And it's the first one that really reflects and documents our history through a woman's lens.
Yeah, that's what I felt was really interesting. It was that you had the female voice in there. Tell us a little bit about that.
That was really critically important for us for a number of reasons. You know, there's lots of stories where the stories are centered around men and not being critical in the sense that that is how history is told sometimes. And the first people that did come to British Columbia from the region of South Asia and mostly from India were men. But there are these hidden stories and forgotten stories and erased stories and omitted stories of women. And so we thought, what a great platform to not negate anything that Mayo Singh did to build this little village, but to bring the matriarch and the woman who was the leader of that community and how she stood shoulder by shoulder with Mayo and built a home, built a community, built a sense of belonging. So we thought coming from her, it would be wonderful. And the two directors are women as well. So I just came together beautifully.
Tell us about the community of Paldie.
Well, the community was to be a very vibrant town at one time. It started in 1917, and by the 20s and 30s, it had established itself as a small logging town in British Columbia. But it was started from nothing. It was just a piece of land, and Mayo Singh bought some timber rights in that region and then decided to build his house and then invited other South Asians, Japanese, Chinese, European settlers to come and build homes as well, to build community, to work on the mill. He was a very entrepreneurial businessman. He had other partners as well. There was 35 other men who also put shares into building this little village and the sawmills. And the town thrived and prospered over a period of 40, 50 years. And when, timber and lumber had that fall from grace in the 60s and 70s, the town also kind of disappeared. And the bigger mills that happened, all the men started working there. And slowly the town kind of disappeared from our landscape and the houses fell apart. They had a couple of fires in the town. Right now, there's only a Sikh temple that's standing there and some homes that are more modern, not the old homes. And the foundations have even kind of swept away. So there's a lot of nostalgia about that place. And we want to really resurrect its position in history as one of the first designed multicultural communities that perhaps we know of from a South Asian perspective.
Yeah, so just tell us that, what does getting a Heritage Minute mean for the South Asian community?
Yeah. I think it means a lot. From the 1 million views in the last 2 days. It's been a great... Yes, we hit 1 million this morning. And for me, it just shows that the thirst in the community to have their history recorded and shared and to be part of the Canadian record, not just in our homes and in our communities, but that everyone have access to this kind of history and also to deeply start to engage with it, open other doors to learning more, perhaps, as you've inquired about what is the city like. And, our own community members have said, where can I watch the full movie, not realizing it's only a minute. But you can see that the desire to know more leaves that person perhaps doing some research, perhaps talking at home, reading a book, looking online. It just helps us build our own record in a way that's inclusive of Canadian history. We've been erased and omitted for so long as if we didn't belong. And we were there. We were everywhere. It's just that we didn't get recorded. and our history didn't seem to matter. And I guess at this point, we're saying it does matter. The past matters, so that we can then live in a future that's informed by the past, and that the racist laws that prevented the woman in the movie Bishan Kaur to join her husband initially, have been eradicated, and those laws hopefully never come back to haunt us. And so it is a bit of giving us courage to continue the resilience and the hopes and dreams of those immigrants. We have it much easier today, but we must never forget our past.
Absolutely. We cannot forget our history. This took a while, though, 7 years to come to fruition. You pushed hard for this.
Well, it took 7 years of conversations and getting Historica on board, and just always asking them, when will we get a chance? When do you plan to design this? And it wasn't until about 3 years ago that they finally agreed. Not that they agreed to me or anything. It's just that that's where the cue was and how they had designed their work. They're a nonprofit organization that has a huge responsibility to record Canada's history and heritage. And when our turn came, I wish it had come earlier, obviously, where, I think we're 50 years behind. So for us to get this minute is really monumental, but it also means that we have so much more work to do, and we have to do a lot of catch up. And this is not the single story that defines our history and our heritage. This is only one part of a story. It's very nuanced and has a lot of layers to the story. So we want to tell more stories. We want to make sure that our record is robust and rich from our experiences. And we also didn't want just a story on, the racism and the discrimination that people face, but we wanted a story that uplifts us, that also gives us hope, and we see the courage of the past so that we can be strong today. So it covers a lot of points.
It covers a lot of points, all in 1 minute. And how did you manage that?
Well, luckily, it wasn't my job to edit. I wouldn't have been able to do it. I wrote a PhD thesis, and I had a tough time cutting that out. So I give them credit, the filmmakers and the editors, for finding the fine points in the filming that they could then bring together within 60 seconds. It was a tough haul. We've seen the filming going on, and every scene was so precious. Every thing that they decided to put in was so precious, and then to have to cut it, we know what ended up on the floor. But I think it told a beautiful story over a period of, I would say the story covers about 25 years of Bishan Kaur's life. And I think it does a very good job of when she arrived to what she really became, and even how she carries herself from the beginning to the end in 1 minute. I think they've done a marvelous job.
Absolutely. Such a pleasure to talk with you today about this. It was a thrill.
Thank you, Hannah, and so appreciative that you gave us some airtime. I appreciate that very much.
It was our pleasure. Satwinder Kaur Bains is the history consultant for the Paldwi Heritage Minute. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah.